reproduce, feed to survive, kill the opposition, and then the cycle repeats itself. This is a quote from Anders Kolsefny, original Slipknot singer, on the title of their 1996 demo. They now refer to it as a demo. It's called Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. This was released in 96, and I pulled that quote from a book I've been reading called Slipknot Unmasked by Joel McIver.
Wow, you're really going deep on the research for the Slipknot series.
I'm a scholar now. I'm a musicologist, music historian. This is the very first episode. We're calling it episode 0 of a new series. 0 because there's a bunch of like numerology related to this band. Like the guys have different numbers assigned to them. I don't think I wrote down who number 0 is. We'll learn that as we go. We'll learn more of the lore. Evan, did I tell you what I wanted to call this series? I don't think I have.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. This is going to be good because it's really bad. It's a bad name.
We're known for that.
This is a series where we're going to review a bunch of Slipknot albums. And the title of the series will be Bay Not Me Slippin'. Do you even get the joke at all?
I don't. My wheels are turning. It's not clicking.
I get it.
Oliver, okay. Yeah, please step in.
There was years ago, someone took a selfie pretending that their boyfriend was taking it of them sleeping, and then you could see her taking the selfie in the mirror in the background.
Oh, yeah.
And it was captioned, "Bae caught me sleeping," or slipping.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. I got you now.
It's a pun on this meme that people don't remember.
That's a reach, but, we'll take it.
So for this episode 0, we brought our friend Oliver in. He's a member of the extended Rock Hard family. Welcome back, Oliver.
Good to be back.
And I thought that you would be a great addition to this discussion because you have recorded music with several bands.
Mm-hmm.
And so your experience, you could maybe relate to some of the things I'm going to tell you about Slipknot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very excited because you probably know more about, if you're being so scholarly and looking up into how they recorded these albums. I'm excited to hear exactly how they did so.
Yeah, I've read part of 2 books now, and I'm learning a lot. Well, actually, yeah, what's your experience with Slipknot so far in your life?
So being a musician in the general realm of punk and metal, just the vaguest, in the vaguest of terms, Slipknot always comes up. Like when my bands are touring, they're like, "Oh, you're from Iowa, Slipknot."
Right.
Like when we were doing our tour in Iceland, like people there were like, "Oh, Slipknot." So it's insane to me how important and how influential Slipknot has been globally. Like they changed metal music on a global scale. And so you would think that I would be more into Slipknot, but I never really, like, no diss to Slipknot. I respect Slipknot, but it just never really was my thing earlier in life. But I think more later in life, I started to listen to Slipknot more, the good albums, like the self-titled one in Iowa and shit, or what I would call good albums.
I noticed you didn't say Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat as one of the good albums.
I don't know if good's the right word. It was extremely funny.
Yeah, it is.
I laughed so much in the excruciating hour it took to listen to this record.
It's quite long, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I think your experience is pretty much the same as ours because, I don't think Justin and I listened to Slipknot when they were, big. But we did survive Knotfest 2021 and have seen them live, and I've come to respect them more than I did back then.
Yeah.
I remember borrowing, like when I was 16, like playing in my first bands and stuff. The snare drum that I borrowed from my friend was a Joey Jordison signature snare drum.
Oh, nice.
So that's one connection I have to Slipknot.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want this to be mostly about like the music and our thoughts on the music, but I do have a bunch of background info here so we can like be better informed about these guys and what they were doing. They released this on Halloween of '96, and the participants were Joey Jordison, the aforementioned, on drums, Paul Gray on bass and backing vocals. Rest in peace, right? He's one who's gone now.
Yes. He also carried this album, hard carried the album.
Oh yeah, he's great on this. My favorite guy, Clown, who is a percussionist and also backing vocals. Real name is Sean Crahan.
Sean Crayon.
I think that's it. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Anders Kolsefny on lead vocals, and I guess he did some of the additional percussion as well. He's an outlier here because this is the only album he's on of theirs. Mm-hmm. Actually, Donnie Steele also, this is the only one he's on, or he may have come back as a touring member or something at some point. But anyway, Donnie Steele is the lead guitarist on this album. And interesting fact about him, he left the band for religious reasons while they were mixing this demo. Because while they were mixing, that was the first time he had been able to actually hear the lyrics.
So he was okay. I see. So everybody in Slipknot were Shiites, and he was a Sunni Muslim.
Yeah,
yeah, that happens for sure.
They were practicing in Clown's. I think it was Clown's basement. I'll get to that in the notes. And nobody could hear what the guy was actually singing, like in the practice room. So. Yeah, Donnie was not aware of the sort of darkness of, well, I mean, fucking, he's singing about like werewolves and shit. Like, are you really like offended? Like, it offends your Christian sensibilities.
That's honestly the first thing that stuck out to me reading about this is that like almost all of the lyrics on this album are inspired by some werewolf tabletop role-playing game that I had never heard of. What is it even called?
Rage the Apocalypse.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't look much into that, but it was very influential on Anders Kolsefny and Sean Crayon.
Yeah,
that's kind of something they bonded
referring
over.
to creatures and places in this world that I don't think many people probably are aware of or played.
Yeah, very sinful.
But I guess it fits in
those creatures.
Fits in with the music, I guess.
And then Josh Brainerd is on rhythm guitar and backing vocals. His nickname, I guess, is Nar, like Gnar, Nar.
Oh.
Josh Nar Brainerd. The album cover. We should mention that briefly. Did you look at the cover, Oliver?
Yes, I did.
So that shows Joey Jordison, the drummer, inside of some kind of metal cage, and the name of that cage, because this is a piece of art by the clown himself, it's called Patiently Awaiting the Jigsaw Flesh.
That's sick.
That predates Saw too, so
yeah, good point.
Maybe Saw might have been influenced heavily by Slipknot.
Maybe the imagery is pretty similar.
It is,
now that you mention it, yeah. So Sean, the creator of the Patiently Awaiting the Jigsaw Flesh cage, by the time they were recording this, he was already married with 3 kids, and he was working as a welder to support his family. So he was like making weird art out of scrap metal, and that was part of the creative drive behind the band, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they also had that cage at the album release party, and like people buying the album could like go into the cage and take pictures and stuff. So it's a pretty fun addition to the stage show. Let me talk a little bit about what these guys were doing before they formed Slipknot. So this is all stuff that I pulled from, again, Slipknot Unmasked by Joel McIver. You know about the old story of Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off of a bat?
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic tale, part of metal history. Did you know that
Iowa
happened
history?
In Des Moines? I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Classic.
So that was January 20th of 1982 at the Des Moines Veterans Memorial Auditorium, which these days is known as the Community Choice Credit Union Convention Center. Or if you were keeping up with that would be the CCCUCC. It's a lot of C's in the name of that building. And that that incident where he bit the head off of a bat was so like inflammatory, just like huge news at the time, that multiple members of Slipknot cite that as like a formative moment for them.
Makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah. It's very over the top, disgusting stage antics, you know. Ozzy Osbourne himself wrote an intro to Jason Arnopp's Inside the Sickness, Behind the Masks, which is another book that I'm reading. In that intro, he referenced an artist who inspired him in a similar way. So like his Ozzy biting the head off of a bat moment was a guy named PJ Proby. I don't know who that is. But Ozzy says, at one gig, his arse accidentally came out of his trousers and his bollocks flopped out onto the audience.
Onto the audience?
Yeah, how big are his bollocks, Ozzy?
Yeah, those are like long whipping balls.
And then I wrote down a bunch of bands that these guys were in before they came together. A funky thrash band called Heads on the Wall that Sean Crahan was in, along with a guy named Kun Nong, who was in like a bunch of these bands, but no one seems to know who he is anymore. And also a guy who is only referred to as Doug. So I'm sorry, Doug, you are lost to history.
Did they make that TV show? Make the TV show about him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is this is actually after the cartoon. He was in a funky thrash band called Heads on the Wall. That's where Doug Funny ended up.
Man, the lives of child actors are crazy.
Yeah, where is he now? No one knows. He's lost. A death metal band called Vex with 2 X's, which also changed its name to Inve Catharsis. And Anders Kolsefny, Paul Gray, and Josh Brainerd were all in that band. One of the more active bands that these guys were in prior to Slipknot was called Modafidius, which was kind of a straightforward thrash band. Had Josh Brainerd, Joey Jordison, Craig Jones, who is not on the album we're talking about today, but is a future Slipknot member. And Modafidius notably opened for Typo Negative in 1995. So this was a serious band, actually. A band called Anal Blast, which is referred to as kind of like edgelord grindcore. Joey Jordison, Paul Gray, Donnie Steele, and Don Decker were all in that. Remember, Donnie Steele is the one who left Slipknot for religious reasons, but he was fine with Anal Blast.
Fine with Anal Blast. It's interesting.
Death metal band called Body Pit featured Paul Gray, Anders Kolsefny, Mick Thompson, and Donnie Steele. Mick Thompson, I think, is another one who joined later. The first jam session of the band that became Slipknot was at Anders Kolsefny's house in early 1995. And at that time, it was Sean Crahan, Donnie Steele, and Kun Nong. Again, that's a guy who has been lost to time. I'm not sure where he is. And after that first jam session, Sean and Anders decided that they wanted to like get serious about this, because playing in bands was sort of something they were doing to screw around. But after that jam session, they were like inspired. They started rehearsing together multiple times a week in Anders' basement. And this is crazy to me. Paul Gray, who is the bassist for this album, he was living in California. Like, he had moved to California. He was from Des Moines. And something about them, like, jamming in a basement gave them, like, they thought, we can get Paul to move back here for this. and they successfully convinced him to move back to Des Moines from California to jam in the basement with them.
Man, that was... I mean, he died, but like that was like kind of a good decision, maybe in retrospect. Maybe. It was definitely probably a leap of faith, but
yeah, I don't know how you kind of predicted that would have gone well, you know?
Yeah.
They got Joey Jordison to play drums. I think he was working as a mechanic at the time, if I remember right. Kun Nong quit because he wasn't that into metal. They all say he was a great guitarist, but he just didn't fit. And then they got Donnie Steele and Josh Brainerd to play guitars. At first, they were calling this band Meld. It's not as striking as
catchy.
Slipknot, right?
No.
They were calling it meld because they were melding different genres of music.
Yeah, I just think of like gin rummy.
Wow.
I don't really think that's what you want to remind people of when you're in a metal band.
That's really interesting that that's your first reference, because that's the reason they changed the name of the band. Someone was like, oh, that's from a card game. And they're like, oh, that sucks. They played their first gig as this new band Meld on December 4th of 1995. And they also apparently were called the Pale Ones at some point, but this is unclear when the name changes were happening. They ended up adopting the name Slipknot because it was their favorite song to play. Like, they had already written the song Slipknot, and that was their favorite, so they started using that name.
Damn, that one was their favorite.
You weren't as excited about that opening track?
It did not stop. I was just like, when's this song going to be fucking over? Jesus Christ.
You probably said that about more than one of these, I would imagine.
Correct, yes.
This is a quote from Anders Kolsefny about that first gig. We didn't have costumes or anything, but we freaked the hell out of everybody.
That seems like
the
main like motivating factor behind like all of these bands that you've listed, which is, not a bad thing to aspire to.
Yeah, freaking people out is fun.
Yeah. And there's some freaky moments on this album for sure. So I think they got their point across.
So off of the success of that first gig at Crowbar, and this, I've been trying to like figure out where these places are that they refer to from the mid 90s. I can't figure out where Crowbar was.
Yeah. I was trying to figure that out too.
It was described as like a multi-level club, and they would have like different sort of genres going on different levels. And yeah, I have no idea where that would have been in Des Moines. Okay, so but off of the excitement that they had felt from these series of basement jams and that successful show at Crowbar, they decided to record their first album. They did so at SR Audio in Urbandale, which is a studio owned by Mike Lawyer, and the producer was Sean McMahon. I don't think he's related to any of the famous McMahons.
Vince,
the various, he's the bad one, right? And then there's like Ed McMahon, who was like a talk show guy.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, where Oliver's expertise at recording sessions will come in handy. They recorded all of this album within 72 hours. That seems pretty quick turnaround to me.
I mean, to be honest, you could have told me they recorded it in one day and I would believe you. Which isn't necessarily a diss. Lots of bands do that sound like this, but I guess it makes sense that it took a little bit longer than that, because there's lots of weird ass bullshit that would take time to go back and insert into this record. And I don't know.
Yeah, the recording was done in 3 days, but they took 3 months to mix it. So that's where all that extra bullshit came in.
Yeah, and this is what stood out to me. They spent $40,000 on this. $40,000, and that is $80,000 in today money. Thanks, Joe Biden. Just kidding. But $40,000. And so Justin and I were talking about, like, what did they spend it on? Like, I don't know how much of that is just like gear, but that's like just seems insane to me.
Yeah.
The like with the tones you're hearing, like if they spent 40 G's or even like 10 G's on like gear, and that's the best that they could come up with, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you buying?
Right. This, like, it sounds fine, but this does not sound like very expensive professional recording.
You would have never guessed it that it's cost that much.
Yeah.
Is there someone in this band have like oil money parents or something?
Well, here's where that money came from. So Sean Crahan was like funding this himself. He put, when I was reading the first book, it said he put $16,000 on credit cards in order to fund this recording. And the other guys were like paying him back, like when they got paychecks and like whatever they could spare. But like, yeah, none of these guys are like rich. They were working like shitty jobs at the time. And then that 40,000 number is referenced in Inside the Sickness, the other book I'm reading. And that may include So that's Sean going $40,000 in debt. That may include his purchase of the Safari Club, which is like the venue that they were playing a lot at the time. Like they released this like self-made CD, and a few months later he was like buying a club. He's ambitious.
God,
can't knock it. Doing
it's worked out for him.
Doing better than any of us.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I know lots of bands that they definitely take out a lot in loans for gear and touring and stuff like that, and recording, obviously. So I guess that doesn't really surprise me. What surprises me is that you spent that much money and that's what came out. I mean, even with like the technology, the recording technology that you had back then, you know, there's no like the choices that were made are just like mind blowing to me.
Yeah, you could record an album that sounds as good as this today, probably better than this today. You could record it at your own house, you know.
You could probably record definitely. Like half of their discography for that amount.
I got a couple of really fun stories about while they were recording. So this is a quote from Mike Lawyer. Again, that's the guy who owned the studio in Urbandale. Mike Lawyer. His last name is Lawyer. The studio was in a shared office building, and Mike says, I drove into the parking lot the next morning after Slipknot had their very first session there the night before, and they had decorated half of a whole parking lot with chalk outline drawings, like of dead bodies, like police outlines. Yet they had added things like huge penises and things to the outlines, all over the parking lot. So these guys are having a lot of fun out there.
Damn, these guys are crazy. How old were these people back then?
Yeah, I didn't write down their exact age. But again, Sean had 3 kids. He was married, you know, so fairly adult. And inside the sickness, I got the detail that going outside and drawing these chalk outlines was their producer's idea, because having all these guys in the studio at the same time was like a pain in the ass because they were like annoying and crowding the space.
Yeah.
He gave them
That's
a
what I was going to say too.
That
$40,000 accounts for like the bloat of how many people were involved in making this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays they would have just like given them iPads.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Like you give your kid
like,
an iPad to pacify them.
Yeah, exactly. They would just been like, "Oh yeah, can you like look at this real quick?" And it's just like a dancing vegetable, and they're like, "Whoa."
All right, Sean, go watch some Bluey. Give us some time to mix the fucking album, please. This is a quote from Anders Kolsefny. When we were recording MFKR, Joey Jordison would scribble little dookie kids pictures and make them look like little monsters and just leave them laying around, and he'd sign it Corn Wallace.
Cool.
Yeah. I think these guys were like kind of straight edge at the time too, which you may not expect.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that.
It didn't last for very long, did it?
I don't think so, because haven't some of them had like pretty serious addiction problems?
We previously have reviewed Iowa on this podcast, and I believe that album was like a very tortured process where everyone was super fucked up.
Yeah, well, and
drugs.
this is before Corey Taylor joined the band, and he was obviously living a very different life from these guys.
Yeah.
All right, and a little bit about like what they were recording. There was, you know, Oliver mentioned all the bullshit. You know, it's not just like drums and guitars. There's also weird like electronic power tool sounds and shit all over the place. This is a quote from the producer. Initially, Clown had a timpani, congos, bongos, and a 55-gallon oil drum. Eventually, we ended up moving over to an oil drum, beer kegs, and garage door opening springs. Big coils, which they scraped with rods. These are the reinforcing rods that go in concrete when they lay it. These things are in highways all over the states. It's a pretty unorthodox drumstick, and it makes a nice ting sound when you strike metal on metal like that.
Yeah. I'm sure plenty of people use rebar for percussion before. It doesn't sound that outlandish.
Yeah. Okay, the lyrics, I think, are kind of the weakest part of this before we actually talk about the music itself. But
yeah.
Anders and Sean were friends because they both had mohawks, and they liked playing the tabletop RPG Rage the Apocalypse. Here's a quote about what Rage is. Rage's central theme was the conflict of a werewolf race, the Garou, with the Worm, an evil tribe. Now, this is, to me, it seems pretty corny to like base all of your lyrics off of like a tabletop RPG. I don't want to throw stones necessarily, but
I think I'm going to agree with you.
I mean, to be honest, within metal and like specifically metal, that's extraordinarily common for people to take like one esoteric like thing that no one's ever heard of and been like, oh yeah, this entire album is about that. So it doesn't really surprise me.
It's a concept album about lore that some other guy wrote, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And as corny as it is, like the idea of like role playing and playing a character is pretty foundational to like what Slipknot is. Like they embody characters as the music, so it kind of makes sense that this was a big part of its foundation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so with all of that background info out of the way, let's actually talk about the songs here. Oliver, you already said you were not a big fan of Slipknot, the opening track.
Yeah, I mean, and that's coming from someone who likes things like I appreciate drone, I appreciate noise music, but those things are hard to do well, I think. They're very difficult to make interesting. And I thought it was kind of just like, all right, get the fuck on with it, you know, type of shit at the beginning. Like just noises that, I don't know, were like just kind of sucked and didn't really build to anything. It just kind of like went into some riffs and then went back into noises and then just kind of ended. There wasn't really any vision, I thought, or it didn't seem like there was. I'm sure there was, you know. But it didn't translate to me. So
it's kind of a bold move for the beginning of your first album that you spent thousands of dollars on. It's like 2 minutes of just like a guitar droning, a snare that sounds like it's a little bit too far away, and it's also like too high. It's like tuned too high. And what sounds like hedge trimmers or something. And there's like a guitar that's like a clean guitar going like da 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 da, that like almost starts to get to something, right?
Yeah, I will say there's a lot of that in this album. Like, it's interesting that they were going to call themselves Meld, because there are a lot of different styles of music on this album, but like it's not really, it doesn't flow together well. It's not like, you know, I listen to a lot of stuff that, you know, crosses genres, but it just feels like a lot of it is just like tacked on, and it wasn't really that thought out to begin with. It's
sort of for the sake of it. Yeah.
I mean, and the thing about it is like, to me, a lot of these tracks, to someone who listens to it and, you know, didn't have any context, they would listen to it and be like, wow, this is crazy. This is just a bunch of random genres floating together. But like, I don't know if y'all have listened to the band Mr. Bungle or like Dog Fashion Disco, or basically, you know, like any Mike Patton shit. Like, like a lot of this was just like a worse Mr. Bungle.
Absolutely.
Like that was what was going through my mind for so much of it. Like there were some parts that were like, oh yeah, this is kind of sick if I imagine that the rest of it didn't suck. So I don't know. It's like, oh yeah, we're melding these genres. It's like, okay, yeah, someone else did it in the fucking 80s and it was way better. I don't know. And there were some parts that kind of sounded like it might even go into a dystopia type riff. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the band Dystopia. They're like an extremely good and influential kind of like sludgy, slow metal hardcore band. With actual cool, like dark lyrics that aren't about werewolves. And so it was just like some parts were a worse Dystopia and a worse Mr. Bungle and a worse Limp Bizkit.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that Limp Bizkit.
Or a worse Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned werewolves, and I just remembered that when I was 13, my friend and I were playing Morrowind, the Elder Scrolls game, and you can turn into a werewolf in that game. So he was showing me the werewolf transformation, and then he was like just jumping around in the game, and we wrote some lyrics based on that. So basically the same mindset as these guys.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and the lyrics, when the actual song starts, it's talking about like, I don't even know,
things that suck.
Different creatures from this role-playing game that suck. And the second one he mentions is bone gnawers, but it sounds like he's saying boners suck. So I was like, is he about to get into like gender politics, like talking about like it sucks to be burdened with boners? But no, he's talking about role-playing games. Yeah, not great lyrics. I would say this is like a decent introduction to the rest of the album, though, and Slipknot as a band, because like the second half of the song is like, I don't know,
musically
it's pretty
fine. I think.
Well, I mean, it's the song that they named the band after. So,
before we get off the lyrics, I have 2 segments prepared for this, or more like just awards that I'm giving to parts of the album. And what I'm about to play now is an excerpt from the first track, Slipknot, and I'm awarding this worst words. The worst words award will be for the worst lyrics that I hear on the album. And they got it on the first track, so it's getting it out of the way real quick. These are the worst words I could possibly write. So if you couldn't hear what he's saying there, he said, "All that sucks dies." That's, I don't know about that. It's not too good.
I don't know. I think there's some worse ones on there, to be honest.
Really?
I don't know what to take from those lyrics.
Yeah, there's some bad ones.
All that sucks dies is just like singularly, like that's really bad on its own.
Yeah, true.
Like
it does stand alone.
I'm choosing to interpret it as like an extremely hopeful lyric. Like the light will shine again. Mm-hmm. All terrible things will pass. All that sucks dies.
This too shall pass.
Eventually. Yeah.
It's basically like Beavis and Butthead interpreting the idea of like this too shall pass. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so why did they name the band after this, right? But why is the song even called Slipknot? I don't know where that came from.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's a strange choice, but it stuck. The band is called Slipknot. My only other note about this song really is that Donnie Steele's guitar solo, which happens. Yeah, why don't I just play some of it? It's 4.5 minutes into the song. It's surprisingly like it just sounds like traditional 80s metal, basically. Just like a type of solo.
Like honestly, none of the guitar solos on this album have like any personality at all. They're all pretty boring, to be honest.
Yeah,
my opinion. And it isn't really music is really well suited for lots of guitar solos anyway. Like Slipknot is all about the rhythm section, like drums, percussion, and bass. Like that's like the foundation of these songs. And
it feels pretty out of place for that solo to be there in the first place. Yeah. But this is the guy who loved Jesus and left the band over it, so
yeah,
he's a little out of step with the rest of them. What about track 2? It's called Gently.
Mm-hmm.
And it provides a pretty nice contrast with the opening because it's very gentle, as the title would suggest.
I said the intro sounds like prog rock / Fish.
Yeah, that's kind of how I interpreted it too, for sure. Yeah, I had I'm trying to see what I wrote down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my notes are really funny. It's just like my notes are dystopia parts ? But worse ? Mr. Bungle breakdown like ? But yeah, I don't really have much for this second song just because I thought, I don't know, like for a lot of this, like I was trying to pay attention, but I was just like, man, this sucked so bad. Like for so much of it, I was just like I said, it was kind of excruciating to get through. And even though there were some parts that made me laugh, that was kind of the only reprieve from me just being like, damn, this sucks. It was like, as I was listening to it, I texted my friend who I play music with and who grew up in Des Moines while Slipknot, like he was like a teenager and into his 20s while Slipknot was like emerging into the mainstream.
Yeah.
And so he like knows everything about Slipknot. He's a huge Slipknot fan, formidable to his life. And I was just like, hey, have you listened to the 1996 release? And he was like, yeah, it sucks ass. Why? He was like, yeah, I don't know what the hell's up with it. I had an OG CD and I sold it for a bunch of money to some idiot.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nice. Yeah, they only printed 999 of those, which I know now. And it never got another reprint, so those are valuable.
Yeah, I saw there were some cassettes too.
Yeah, I think people made like bootlegs of it because it was so hard to get a hold of. One thing that I will compliment this song a little bit. I thought that Anders, his like singing on this track it surprised me a little bit. Like he was singing like this really like low bass range, and it was like, oh, okay, he has a decent range and he can actually sing. The words he's saying are not very good, but
yeah, well, that's what I said. I said the words are not good, but they're probably better than most of the rest of this album. But it's like the lyrics are just window dressing for this stuff anyway. It's like I don't think that was real the focus of it.
Yeah. Gently my mind escapes into the relaxing mode of pleasure.
And the other thing about this, yeah, there you go. Not great. This song did appear on Iowa, their second album that we listened to.
Oh, okay.
And I noted here that I have no recollection of what that other song sounds like. At all.
I don't remember. Yeah,
we will did not ring a bell.
We'll need to re-review that when we get to it.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
Okay, track number 3 is called Do Nothing / Bitch Slap, and it opens with like Les Claypool Primus bass stuff and then becomes lounge jazz.
I believe that is bitch slap bass.
Sure, yeah. And then they do like Bee Gees disco stuff also.
Yeah. Yeah, I put a jazz break, but the kind of jazz you would hear in a children's cartoon.
Yeah, this is more of that like melding and like contrast just for the sake of it. I sort of sympathize with them because it feels like they're like really trying to impress people with like the quick changes and like showing off that like, oh, we're not just like dumbass metalheads, like we can play this other music too.
This is a bizarre song with all of the genre skipping that really, again, there's no like, it just happens. Like there's no like seg into any of it. It's just like, it just switches lanes like immediately without really any forecasting.
Which can be really cool when songs just like snap genres or just completely change on its head. Like I'm going to bring them up again, like Mr. Bungle, like they do that so well. I don't know, but this just kind of seemed like more contrived and I don't know, it just didn't hit the mark for me.
Yeah.
As
the
I was
lyrics
listening,
are also terrible.
Well, yeah, I wrote that this is like a guy having a mental breakdown about to do a mass shooting is basically what the lyrics are.
Yeah. I can say that about a lot of their songs, I think.
Well, sure. Yeah, that is kind of their aesthetic. It's sort of like a Postal, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
I did, as I was listening to this, I said, this is probably my favorite track just because it's like goofy. I'm kind of a sucker for the goofiness of it.
He's talking about like putting a cap in your asshole.
That's why I liked it so much. That's why it's my favorite.
You're like a school in summer, no class. Like
I love that.
What is that about? just throw it in there, I guess.
It kind of reminded me of like 90s Gwar also, when they were at their worst. Gwar was like doing cross genre and like terrible comedy bits in their songs. All right, Limp Bizkit. You referenced Limp Bizkit a while ago, Oliver. I think this is the most Limp Bizkit of the album. Track 4, Only One. This was a harsh reminder that Slipknot is considered part of the nu metal canon because suddenly a white guy is rapping.
Yep.
Yeah, I did not even realize that song actually started, and it just wasn't a continuation of the previous track.
Yeah, they kind of fit together back to back.
Yeah, until the like rap funk breakdown. Not a fan.
Slapping, sitting, scatting on my back, trying to relax, thinking about the facts of the crack running through the pack, division in thought about the war to be fought, for trying to mend the ranks, still I get no thanks.
Damn. That's just so good.
It's not great, but I've definitely heard worse. You know, it's like,
yeah.
Probably shouldn't have gone for it, but he did commit, you know?
Yeah.
I will say that the end of this song is decent. I like when they get into the only one of us walks away thing.
Yeah, that part was kind of sick.
Yeah, I like it's kind of like groove metal more, like the last.
That sounded kind of more like a classic Slipknot song to me.
The end of it,
yeah, for sure.
The sort of group chanting is definitely more how they sound later, at least from what I've heard.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, how I brought up the band Dystopia earlier? Yeah. Extremely good band. Y'all should go check them out. But the more that I think about it, the more I think somewhat sonically, but thematically, I think Slipknot completely ripped off Dystopia. And I have a good case for it, I think. In 1994, Dystopia released an album called Human Equals Garbage.
Oh, wow.
Which might sound similar to a particular song on the album Iowa.
Right, humans equals shit or something, right?
People equal shit.
People equal shit.
People equal shit, yeah.
And it's even with the equal sign.
Right,
And a very memorable lyric in one of the songs on Human Equals Garbage by Dystopia, which was released in 1994, is Stress Builds Character, which is an amazing song. And one of the coolest lyrics in it is fuck, eat, sleep, destroy.
Yeah, I could definitely see a case for them being heavily influenced by Dystopia.
Yeah, which is like, I wish they were more influenced by them sonically, because that band destroys, or at least for this album.
Yeah.
But sorry, I was just kind of like mentally putting those pieces together.
Yeah, there's definitely, I'd be shocked if they were not influenced by that.
Yeah. But don't expect any Limp Bizkit parts in Dystopia. That's just not going to happen. Like,
I might not listen all the way through then. What about Tattered and Torn? That's the next one. I found this is the shortest, or second shortest. I guess only one is the shortest. But Tattered and Torn is 3 seconds longer. So, all right, these are basically the same length. Anyway, Tattered and Torn is like the most annoying. It's sort of like a high-pitched, squealy guitar shit bouncing left and right the entire time. Here, I'll give you a... So imagine that with like slight variations for 2.5 minutes straight.
Were they playing a saw in the background there? I'm sure they were.
I'm pretty sure that's a flexitone. It's a very similar sound to the musical saw, but it's sort of a percussive way to get that sound.
It sounds like just continuously it's Mario dying over and over again. Like,
yeah. Or the Pac-Man death sound. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really all I wrote about this one.
Yeah, I didn't have much to say.
Straightforward, angry metal.
I didn't mind the trebly guitar parts. It's a little different, I guess, than the other songs. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think there's good percussion work on like all of like I do like their approach to like how they treat their drums and percussion. And yeah, I mean it's definitely like super maximalist, like over the top. But that's the only part I really enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, no one can come on and say Joey Jordison wasn't like an insanely cool and amazing drummer, like arguably one of the best metal drummers of all time. I don't think it really shows as much in this record, but it does come through a little bit. And like you said, just Slipknot's like incessant use of auxiliary percussion is, a staple for them, which I've always liked.
Yeah, I think it's cool too. I really like the and this is like the least of it is on this album because they only had Joey and Sean, and they added even more bullshit after this. This is only 6 guys. Yep. They're not 9 guys yet.
6 guys plus whoever was hanging out in the studio that day.
Right. But I do think that is a strength of theirs, even on this, less than stellar album. At least they're experimenting with expanding the percussive stuff a lot, even if it is like drawn out and doesn't really go anywhere a lot of the time. Confessions is the one that comes after that, and they start doing like funk and rapping again, and This is a worse rap than the one on Only One.
This is the worst vocals on the album by far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not good.
I wrote down for this song, that the bass in the beginning I thought was cool and pretty. Like, I liked the bass tone and what the bass was doing, but then the rest of the song happened. And so, that's what I have to say about this song.
You know what I put in my notes? I just saw this. I wrote, the bass sounds pretty bad on this track.
Like, it sounded bad in a good way to me.
It's interesting. There's a contrast for sure. It's kind of like thinned out, it sounds like.
I put intro sounds like Fish Again. Another boring guitar solo. And also that they needed Corey Taylor should have been in the band for this one. It would have made the song slightly more palatable.
Yeah. I think I'm someone who I don't really like it when people force guitar solos. I think sometimes people think, oh, there has to be a dope ass, sick ass solo, because it's like a rock and roll solo. But I don't know. Sometimes I think it derails songs sometimes.
Absolutely.
And it like isn't needed. I think that's one of the reasons why I really like Green Day, because sometimes like where a normal band would put like a guitar solo, they just had rhythm guitars going still. And I thought that was badass and cool. So yeah, I totally agree with you. So many solos on this record. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you didn't have to put that part in. It's like they're just following a formula. Like, oh shit, we wrote this song, we forgot to put in a guitar solo. Now we gotta insert it.
Yeah, and I think that's what that guy Donnie Steele was like bringing to the table, was like he was good at like thrash metal solos. And it doesn't really make any sense a lot of the time with this music, but that's what he could do. He was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
What about when they turn into Red Hot Chili Peppers at the end of this song? I'm going to play a clip here.
I rolled out my heart into knowing just where my hopes and dreams are going. I don't want to lay you back. I'm up in a wall that you are not part of. I sent this letter to your father with love.
That's like straight California.
Up Red Hot. Yeah. That shit was so funny.
Yeah.
And I think he's thinking about how he hates his dad or something.
Yeah. Yeah, the bass playing on this album is actually honestly pretty good. But yeah, it's stylistically, again, very confused.
It's weird. Why is this happening? Yeah. I think maybe this song is about a father being sent to war against the worm. So like a werewolf father, I think someone's werewolf dad is being sent off to war. I marked this as my least favorite track, but I
just was typing in. I just was typing in the computer because I was just going to look up the lyrics, so I can like read along. I just typed in Slipknot, mate, feed, kill, repeat, and one of the top things when you look it up is Slipknot, mate, feed, kill, repeat, real or fake?
This is AI.
People are like, this is not a fucking actual Slipknot album.
Or this is like early file sharing where stuff would get misattributed.
That's what I was going to say. This is something that some other band shared on Kazaa to try to get more views.
I did give them credit for surprising me with a song that is like not metal at all. So
yeah, but
you get that.
It's not good though.
Yeah. I'm sort of beyond ideas of good and bad music at this point in my life.
Yeah, I hear you.
If you can surprise me.
I'm much less pretentious than I used to be. I'll give you that.
Not that this isn't bad. You know, I will concede that some things really are objectively good and bad.
And some things I think are good because they're bad, not in an ironic way at all, like in some weird post-ironic, like pretentious way, but sometimes like there's a genius in how fucking dog shit something can be. It's just like, how did you do this? Like, I don't know. It makes it notable for that. But this album is just bad in a bad way most of the time, I think. Yeah. To me.
Honestly, if it was shorter, I think it would be more fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't understand why bands like, well, this is me coming from I play in punk bands, so an LP is like 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
A lot of the time for like
Yeah.
a hardcore band.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I'm just like, man, metal, why is this an hour fucking long? Like, I don't want to listen to any band play for that long. So I don't know why these bands do this.
Yeah. I mean, I can get into some long form stuff, but this just, it feels like there's not enough there.
Yeah, it's like padding.
It's filler.
Yeah.
Oh God, especially, filler, we'll get to that on the last track.
Yeah.
What about Some Feel, though? Track 7, Some Feel. It's sort of like they're getting rid of the Red Hot Chili Peppers bullshit. It's like, no, we are a metal band. Don't forget.
Honestly, this is my favorite one, but just because it's like the most like competent, like straightforward song on here, I think. I don't think it's like particularly good, but it's like not objectionable in the way that a lot of these songs are.
Yeah, it's less fucking around. Yeah.
I agree that this was definitely the best song on the record, and I was looking through some YouTube comments, and I saw some people saying like Some Feel is still like the best Slipknot song ever. And
Wow.
I'm like, okay, I don't know, maybe chill a little bit, dog, but like it's the best one on this record.
Yeah, is this one that they redid later? I know that at least a couple tracks from this came back, but I didn't look up which ones.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But this one gets another one of my awards for the episode. Recommended riff. The recommended riff award goes to the outro of this song, which I just really like the sort of relentless guitar energy. All right, I like that a lot. Just nonstop. Just
Yeah.
Yeah. It's them finding their Slipknot. It's them just like finding their sound in this song, I think.
Honestly, yes. Like, this is the one that sounds the most like Iowa, which is the only work of theirs that I'm really familiar with. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds the most like Iowa, which is an insanely good record. And it, I think, showcases extremely how good Joey Jordison can be.
Yeah, for sure.
And kind of like is an introduction to like, oh, damn, like this guy rocks. And not only just for being like a talented drummer technically, but also with endurance, which I think is like the physicality of a drummer, I think is extremely important and kind of overlooked. I would rather a drummer play like a caveman in a non-technical song.
Oh yeah.
But in heavy music like this, you need to hit hard and you need to have like passion. And also just the way he plays drums is just like the fills that he does. Like you can tell it's Joey Jordison playing because like the fills that he does, like with the toms, are so sloppy, but in like a good way, just like
Yeah.
I think it's super cool. So yeah, I totally liked that in this song.
The energy is what matters, not the precision.
Correct. Not to say Joey Jordison does not have precision. He definitely does. But I do think the energy and the strength is more important for drummers, how hard they hit. There's nothing I hate more than I'm watching a metal band play live and there's a drummer that is using like triggered drums and is like tapping the drum set. It just instantly makes me want to die.
Yeah, you drum pretty hard. I've seen you play a few times.
Yeah, it takes like it takes conditioning and it hurts your body, but I think it's worth it. And that's also why I'm like, damn, I want to play a 20-minute set max.
Yeah,
because you're
get worn out.
leaving it all out there. Yeah,
because it hurts your body and you want to puke afterwards. But if you don't, you're a poser, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can probably agree that Some Feel, if they had stopped there, this album would leave a pretty good taste in everyone's mouths, I think. Like, there's some stupid bullshit on the album, but they ended strong. But that's not the way they went out.
No.
Killers Are Quiet is next. It is a 10.5-minute track, and that doesn't even include the like hidden track bullshit that comes afterwards.
Yeah.
Which is another 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah, the copy that I had actually had it split up into 2 different songs. But like the Dogfish, whatever the fuck the last song is.
Yeah, I've got the ending split into 3 tracks. Killers Are Quiet, Untitled, and Dogfish Rising.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind Killers Are Quiet. It's like kind of a dirge. It's again a different thing. But I feel like for like a atmospheric kind of song, like it was more cohesive than the other times when they tried to do that on this album. I didn't mind it. I thought it has a cool little bass riff. I don't know. I didn't find it objectionable, I guess is what I'll say, which is what I said about the last song too.
I found this to be like a similar sort of form to the opening track, but like more boring.
Yeah, that's another way to put it too.
And I pulled this from genius.com. So that's where, geniuses are interpreting the lyrics of some of the greatest art that's out there in the world. Yeah. So for Killers Are Quiet, somebody wrote, this song could be a reference to Slipknot's sampler and keyboardist Craig Jones, aka Number 5, who is quiet and doesn't really speak. First of all, I'll object to this because he wasn't even in the band yet, but they continue. They also refer to Craig as the killer and the silent one. Craig is the only member in the band who refuses to speak to media, and he doesn't really speak to the members of the band as well. He is rarely ever seen with his mask off. If at all, he is seen without his mask. His face is blurred. This is a guy who has sort of like a pinhead type mask. It's like a full gimp thing with the spikes in it.
Oh, yeah, dude's cool.
So I'm sure that they were friends with the guy already, so maybe this is a song about him, but he was not in the band for this album, so I don't know.
Reading these lyrics, it just seems more like more werewolf lore to me, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Filling the shadows with forms of my own, raised by kindred of Git, I was born. Git is capitalized, so Get is maybe like a werewolf god or something. Spiritual quest, I must stay on guard. Yeah, I'm sorry, this is about werewolves, my friend.
Yeah. Werewolves and the eternal struggle of good versus evil.
Yeah. I wrote that the vocal melody in this reminded me of Black Sabbath a little bit.
I can see that.
I said it was minimal and endless repetition.
Yeah. Which, I guess I like minimal and endless repetition, so that one didn't bother me as much, but I can see how it wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea.
And I didn't necessarily mean that as a criticism. It just sort of reminded me of like, early Ozzy Osbourne.
I think that's probably why I did like it more, is because it's like
singing
less
2 notes forever.
It's just not as like over the top as a lot of the songs.
Mm-hmm. I'm not one to shut down long, pointless instrumental music, but this instrumental break is also like 2 minutes long and doesn't do anything that the intro didn't do.
Oh yeah, then there's just like 4 minutes of just like like drums at the end for some reason that doesn't really make any sense. I don't know if that's your untitled track in between.
I really think that they were trying to hit a certain length for this album. I don't know label wise, like if this was put out on anything. Do you happen to know that?
I think this was just an independent release.
That's what I thought.
I think they shopped it around to try to get a deal. But I don't know if it had. Yeah, I don't think it was distributed very much.
Yeah, they distributed it themselves, is what everything I've read says.
Okay, well, I feel like sometimes for labels, they're like, the deals are like, all right, you sign this and you have to give us 2-3 full-length albums, and they define full-length album by, X amount of minutes or whatever. So I felt like maybe, it could have been a contractual agreement, like, oh man, we need to make a bunch of dumb noise to technically fill this agreement, because I know bands do that.
Yeah.
And it really shows in albums, like, damn, this sucks. Like, there's 4 good tracks on it, and I'm just like, you should have just released a 7-inch. But I think sometimes people get it in their heads, even if they're not contractually obligated, like, oh, an album needs to be this long, otherwise it's not an album,
right
to their standards or how they think an album should be. So
If we're going to put this out, it has to be substantial. Otherwise, people won't take us seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's a bunch of dumb bullshit that everyone will skip.
That's what I was thinking. Like, they sold these CDs to, like, Des Moines metalheads in 1996, and everyone's playing it. Well, probably not in their cars because they didn't have CD players in the cars. But they're playing it at home, and they're like, God damn, I'm bored as hell. And then they just skip and start over, or they go back to some field and listen to that again.
Mm-hmm.
People were probably not making it to the end of this very often.
Yeah, definitely not.
Okay, so there's like a long instrumental outro of Killers Are Quiet, which bleeds into an untitled track. And they strip it down even more, so it gets more boring for a while. But there's like a loop of like it sounds like maybe a vocal sample of someone like breathing. I don't know. And then I wrote, someone is playing with a zipper in my left ear. Someone is tightening a bolt with a socket wrench in my right ear.
Yeah.
And then someone starts hitting an anvil in the center and brings it all together.
I guess, yeah. I wrote Slipknot is actually a no-wave band for this one. And the last part is, which is definitely the worst part of the whole album.
I don't know if I made it to this, to be completely honest, guys. I think I tapped out before this.
Oh, you didn't hear
the very, very end?
When he goes, who wrote these fucking lyrics? And they're like talking about like Cookie Crisp and shit. He didn't get that part?
I did not hear that.
Oh wow.
I feel bad now that...
it's called Dogfish Rising. More like dog shit sinking.
Dog shit.
So in order for me to award the worst words award to All That Sucks Dies, I had to disqualify Dogfish Rising. Because my hypothesis was that they were writing the worst thing they could think of. And just making something very embarrassing.
Yeah, that was also my notes to reiterate that they spent $40,000 on this album.
God.
Here's some background info on this, though. This is from the producer, Sean McMahon. It was partly a spoof on Kurt Cobain, which I would not have caught on to.
Yeah, I don't know.
At least that's what it started out as. It rapidly deteriorated into something quite different. Joey set his drums up, not in the studio, but in the control room. We had a great time.
Cool.
So that's why everything sounds like really bad. The Dogfish experience involved the band and a posse of pals scribbling down ad-libbed lyrics, then taking it in turns to sing them. So yes, they were bringing a bunch of random people into the studio, even in addition to a 6-person band. There were probably a good 15 to 20 of us. When it came to someone else's turn to do a vocal line, we would literally throw the microphone across the room to this person. They'd either catch it, or in some cases not, and it would hit the floor. All that stuff was left in the final track. It's hilarious. There are all kinds of references
hilarious
to sphincter muscles.
Yep.
Man, I wish I would have soldiered on and listened to this.
There is one thing in this that I thought was salvageable. Let me pull up to the correct timestamp here, so you can hear what I consider to be a very good impression.
Yes, Mr. Burns.
It's a pretty good impression of Smithers from The Simpsons there. I'm glad they left that in. That kind of redeems the whole thing in my eyes.
Yeah, that was cool. Like, I enjoy putting dumbass bullshit in recordings and having fun. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like a thing lots of people do, because recording is a dumb, tedious process a lot of the time. So people just try to have fun with it, I think. And there's definitely times when it's like, all right, we're going to do group vocals in here. Let's just call as many people as we know and get them over here and say a bunch of dumb bullshit.
Yeah. They should have got their 15 to 20 friends to chant, only one of us walks away with them. That would have been cool.
Yeah. In the punk, in hardcore punk, we call group vocals like that youth crews. I don't know if you're familiar with the genre of youth crew. It's just like young people making posy hardcore music, and they're all chanting at the same time, going like, we will rise above the bullshit or some shit like that.
Yeah.
So that's why it's called Youth Cruise. So yeah, I love a good youth crew.
You
Interesting.
brought up Green Day earlier, and it reminds me of that All By Myself thing at the end of Dookie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Classic. I remember being in 4th grade thinking that was the funniest shit on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe some kids in Des Moines thought that was the best part of the album. I don't know. Who can say?
Probably.
Yeah.
You know?
Could have hooked some fans early on with that.
Probably changed a lot of their brain chemistry. They developed differently because of this song.
You know what? Let me bring up the lyrics to Dogfish Rising, just so people know exactly what we're talking about. Here's a verse. Dogfish rising, blistered cabbage, poor fish toenail, poor thing crawls. Why take free lotion? Lactate freely, back bunk mushrooms, foot clip lick mud, redneck percussion, back off, fuckhead. You know, pinpoint penis blood, that's a good line right there. Crisp food finger, since you brought up Cookie Crisp.
Cookie Crisp.
It's kind of given me like Come Together by the Beatles. Like Dogfish rising, you got burn them for their nipples. No, the rubber Rolex. So
yeah, wow. It actually fits super well.
Lactate freely, back bunk mushrooms, foot clip lick mud, redneck percussion.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned this already, but the album release party was at the Safari Club. Or maybe I didn't mention that, because that is now Lefties in Des Moines. Safari Club. That was on Halloween of 96. They printed 999 copies on CD, or pressed them, rather. They didn't print them. And that's all they made. So if you got one, it's probably worth some money. It's not very good to listen to, so you try to get some money out of that from a diehard fan.
Slipknot super fans out there.
Yeah. So we've been pretty harsh on this album. I think deservedly so. We were pretty critical, but we did see a seed of some of what was to come later. They're experimenting.
It's
they're
a very weird mix
of
like ambition and like complete amateurness. I don't really know. It's a weird thing. It's weird that they spent so much money. It's weird that they went that hard on it, but I guess it eventually worked out for them. I think it took a while because this was not a success on immediate release. I think they had to gain some word of mouth before they had a chance to, release an album on a bigger scale.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that next time when we talk about their first real album.
Yes, which I have not listened to at all, but I've heard it's significantly better than this. So
yeah. It's interesting. It's an interesting human artifact. Like, what were these guys doing? Why does this sound like this? Yeah, it's an interesting experience. But I wanted to give this quote from Clown. He funded the thing, so I'm sure he has strong feelings about it. He was interviewed by a website called hiponline.com. Don't know what that is. And he said, at the time, that first album was the best thing ever. It's a sick, demented, magical album. But we don't support it anymore. It really didn't have any structure. We'd try anything as a band, as long as we felt it belonged to Slipknot. We had songs that go from total death metal to grindcore, right into funk and disco. But we made it so it wasn't a joke. I question that. It was really powerful, and it was really us. We were basically soul searching for our true entity and trying to figure out exactly what we were going to be.
Yeah, that seems fair. I mean, there's obviously talent there,
Yeah,
obviously.
For sure.
They just needed to harness it in a more controlled way, I guess.
Yeah. It just back in 95, you couldn't fuck around like this without spending tens of thousands of dollars, unfortunately. So for them to get it done, it was pretty expensive.
And it was a good decision to switch out the lead singer. If he's listening to this, sorry, but he still seems like, I saw some stuff where he's still giving interviews about this album and kind of taking a lot of credit for it.
He did a tour where he performed this album last year, I think.
I mean, that's cool, but yeah, I think you might want to move on after a while.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's like a bad vocalist. Not a great lyricist though. But I don't know. When this is the biggest thing you've ever done, it would be hard for me to let it go.
True.
Yeah.
True. I mean, it must really stick to him that the band got way successful after he left. I mean, that's got to be hard to deal with.
It started in his basement, you know? So
yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we've got to say about Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. So next time we'll go to the self-titled. I think that was 99 when they got that one.
Yep.
Yeah. So I haven't listened to that either. I've heard something from it. Wait and Bleed. I've heard that. That's off that album, right? But have not listened to the album itself. So that'll be new for me. Oliver, do you have stuff that you would like our listeners to be aware of? Some plugs?
Some plugs? I don't know. There's always if you're interested in music and heavy music or punk music, anything under that general umbrella, there's always cool stuff going on in the Iowa City area. Just keep your eye out for shows and whatnot that are going on at now, like True Coffee. We just had a sold out show there.
Yeah.
We just always shows at Gabe's. There's, I know it's been proven in court now that the University of Iowa Police Department listens to this recording, listens to Rock Hard Caucus.
Now,
so
we don't know if they're a Patreon subscriber, but
oh, okay.
we might release it for free.
But yeah, there's shows happening at not official venues that I won't say because I know Ian Mallory's probably listening to this.
Yeah, there's Narcs.
There's Narcs, yeah. But yeah, I suppose just keep your eye out for that type of stuff.
Yeah, if you go to a hardcore show in Iowa City, you will see Oliver.
Don't you have
Pretty
a show
much
in Des Moines,
guaranteed.
like next week?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I play in just kind of like a pop punk band, Green Day style pop punk, not Warped Tour style.
I love this band. One of my favorites.
Yeah. We're playing, what's this venue called? It's like
XBK.
XBK.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't played there yet, but I know there's lots of shows happening right
It's a good
there
room.
now. I think it's next Friday,
Okay.
the 23rd, Death Kill Overdrive, and this really good band called Odd Pets is playing too, and a good band called Greg Wheeler.
Oh, yeah.
Poly Mall Cops, yeah.
Yeah.
Poly Mall Cops, yeah. That should be fun. If you're in Des Moines, a Des Moines listener.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only
a good
mentioning this
time.
because I already have tickets to it. So,
Oh, hell yeah.
so yeah.
It's weird playing at this venue. Like, we keep getting updates when people buy tickets, like, to our email, which is really funny. Which is, I don't know, funny for this type of show, like pre-sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, could be a good time.
Yeah, I'm going to put this episode out next week, so it'll be a couple days before that show, so get out there if you're in Des Moines. And I'm looking forward to the Death Kill Overdrive show at Gabe's. I think it's in March. You're playing with Haploid on the same bill.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's going to be incredible. Two of my favorite Iowa bands.
Yeah, there's also a Death Kill Overdrive show happening March 27th. It's like some weekday. Or not March, sorry, February 27th at a house called Purgatory in town. So that should be really fun. The house shows in Iowa City are extremely good. So I recommend it. Ask some punk in town what the address is.
Yeah. You can ask me. I know where it is too.
Yeah, ask Justin.
Real punk over here.
That's me. Yeah. Well, Oliver's partner Juliet did say that I am punk, so
Okay.
I wear the badge proudly.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you in a box. I'm not really much of a punk guy myself, but
yeah,
I'm not a punk guy either. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's been Bay Not Me Slippin' episode 0. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Evan. And whenever we get to the next one, it'll be out. So keep an eye out for the next one. Bye, everybody.
Hell yeah. Have a good night.
peace.